morning. You know what? Let's take a page from President Jones, who's here today. Good morning. There we go. Thank you. I'm Victor Balta, Assistant Vice President for Communications and spokesperson here at the University of Washington. I'm so pleased to welcome all of you who have joined us today in the Alder Hall Auditorium, as well as those of you watching online to the 2026 Provost Town Hall. Before we begin, I want to note that Provost Serio will be taking questions at the conclusion of the Town Hall. For the sake of fairness, we, between in-person and online attendees, we ask that everyone who has a question, please submit it to provost@uw.edu. Given our limited time today, Provost Serio will be the only one of the speakers to take questions. If you have a question for any of the other speakers or presenters, you may also send it to provost@uw.edu, and our team will send it on. Now, let's get things started. We are so fortunate to be able to start our event today with some live music. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Ted Poor, Associate Professor of Jazz Studies in the School of Music. In his welcome remarks, Ted will describe and demonstrate the role that arts play in our lives and our community. Ted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you all this morning. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to play for you and to share a musical experience together. It is an honor to be here this morning to introduce our Provost, Tricia Serio. I've come to know Tricia through my participation in the Provost's Academy, and I quickly learned that amidst the myriad academic and budgetary concerns engaging the Provost lies a deep and personal understanding of our collective need for artistic experiences to play a prominent role in our lives and communities. Provost Serio is herself an avid knitter, and we have discussed at length a unique type of knowledge that is essential to our well-being and fundamentally human. I'm talking about knowledge that is cultivated with imagination, creativity, collaboration, complexity, and empathy. Knowledge that serves us when words fail. We find ourselves at a time where, if left unchecked, our primary relationship to the world is curated by remarkably fine-tuned machines that thrust content before us to elicit one of two responses: gratification or outrage. How utterly exhausting and lonesome that is. Do you know what isn't exhausting and lonesome? Experiencing the arts. Attend a play, go to a concert or a dance recital, pop into the Jacob Lawrence or Henry Art Gallery for even 10 minutes. Admission is free. I promise you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. These experiences create invaluable spaces for us to escape the binary, to reflect, heal, recharge, connect, and in doing so, to better understand ourselves and others. When we engage with the arts, we each reverberate with a bit more authenticity, compassion, and curiosity. These reverberations matter. They combine and compound into and are dedicated to amplifying and expanding our sources of artistic energy. I want to thank Provost Serio for the opportunity to celebrate these values with such a broad audience today. These values are core to my Arts Division colleagues, but I also want to highlight their presence outside the division. With support from the Provost's Academy, I have had the opportunity to collaborate on a number of new projects centered around arts and creativity with Harborview Medical Center, the College of Education, the Resilience Lab, undergraduate research, and the Alumni Association, with whom we are hosting an informal performance series called Spark at the historic UW Club on the third Thursday of each month, which means next Thursday, February 19th at 4:30 sharp, you can hear new music for violin and cello presented by our brilliant music colleagues, Paula Garcia and John Popham, while enjoying the beverage of your choice and sweeping views of the Cascades. So whether experiencing the arts and community is part of your regular routine or a new addition to it, I hope you'll join us. All are welcome. Provost Serio, your support of this work and of the role the arts play in our community is so important, and it positively impacts our students, staff, faculty, and greater Seattle community alike. Thank you, and with that, please welcome Dr. Tricia Serio.
Thank you so much, Ted, both for the kind introduction and for sharing your talent with us today, and for creating a truly impossible act to follow. I'm grateful especially to you for creating the space for art, for practice, art, reflection, and kinship, or Spark, as you mentioned, that's really been bringing people together at the reactivated UW Club. These gatherings often feature our students and are more than just a pause in busy days. They're an opportunity for us to be intentional about engaging with the beauty in music and art and in one another. So please, if you haven't had an opportunity yet, or if you have, come back next Thursday and be in community with us or at an event in the future. I also want to acknowledge the Coast Salish peoples of this land I stand on, land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. I extend a warm welcome to all who are joining this town hall, whether you're here in person or online, and especially our students, staff, and faculty. I'm so honored to be a part of this unparalleled university with each one of you. I also want to extend a welcome to our regents, Tamaki and Barsness, who are here in person, and also Regents Rhodes, Fuller, and Zeke, who are joining us online today. And also here, our wonderful president, Robert J. Jones, and leaders from all across the university. I'm so deeply appreciative of your partnership and the steadfast support, guidance, and advocacy you have for this university every day. I begin my remarks today in full recognition of the realities of our world today. We're navigating a time of compounded strain, from widening economic inequality, accelerating technological and political change, shifting governance and immigration enforcement, increasing environmental disruption, rising global conflict, and ongoing public health pressures. These challenges touch our lives and are amplified by the unequal ways in which we experience them, shaped by our histories and communities. It's a great deal to carry all at once, and if you're anything like me, it's ever present in your thinking. I recently read an op-ed in the New York Times, and there was a quote in there that resonated with me. It said, "A loss of faith produces a belief in nothing." And I've really interpreted that simple observation as a call to actively resist despair. That can feel really difficult right now, but we are fortunate, and I remind myself of this every day, to share a powerful source of optimism. And that's the great good that comes from the opportunities that we create together at the University of Washington. Every day, you give me hope for our collective future. Our shared belief in our mission and the faith that our community has had in us to deliver it dates back to the founding of the university itself. In 1861, our founding was not a given. Even the territorial superintendent of education, who should be advocating for education, doubted that the future state of Washington had even a single person prepared for a university education, and argued that those funds should be invested elsewhere. The university was founded anyway, sustained from the start by a public-private partnership when Arthur and Mary Denny donated land downtown for the university. The first 15 years were precarious. The university closed 4 times in that span, 4 times in 15 years. And when the state legislature failed to provide support again in 1882, the president of the Northern Pacific Railroad stepped in with a $4,000 contribution to keep it open. So looking back on that history, it gave me a chuckle, much like many of you have. But what I really want to do is share this history to remind us that even in the most difficult of times, we'll find a path forward together with our community. The university went on to award its first degree to Clara A. McCarthy, who later became the first woman superintendent of Pierce County Schools. So this is a really early illustration of the public good that a UW education makes possible. Since then, the university has awarded hundreds of thousands of degrees. I tried to get an accurate number, but apparently the paper records are hard to count. But I know there's at least 500,000 in the past 100 years. Today, 75% of our undergraduates are Washington residents. 70% will graduate with no debt. And more than 2/3 will begin their careers here in Washington, continuing a long tradition of giving back to the community that believed in this university before its value was obvious. Our ongoing relationship with our community remains special to this day. The work that we do, long predating the current pressures, reflects our commitment to continually refine how we serve, strengthen, and care for that relationship by contributing to the needs of our state. For example, our faculty are actively analyzing and addressing where student demand and degree capacity are misaligned to open up access to high-demand majors. They're refreshing curricula to reflect the skills and knowledge that students need to be successful in their careers today. And that includes innovating in the use of AI, not only to promote student learning, but to ensure that they have the literacy to use it equitably and responsibly through the AI at UW initiative. Through our WWAMI program, we educate future physicians, the majority of whom will practice in that 5-state region. And the Rural Initiative in Dental Education, or RIDE program, has just this year doubled its capacity to expand access to oral health care for rural communities. Yet, we must acknowledge that despite our commitment and all of this hard work, we again find ourselves in a moment when our value is openly questioned. In 2015, 57% of Americans had a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in higher education. But by the summer of 2024, that confidence had dropped to 36%. Within our own state, 82% of residents have a favorable opinion of the University of Washington, but 58% felt that the university had little or no impact on them or their families. For a university community that believes so deeply in our public mission, it can be really frustrating to see this misalignment. But we can neither abandon our commitment to our communities nor ignore their concerns. So rather than withdrawing, this moment calls for all of us to stand together, buoyed by the lessons of our history, clarity of purpose, openness to partnership, and the humility and courage to evolve. It calls upon us to ensure that the public tangibly experiences why universities matter by listening more carefully, engaging more openly, making visible the contributions that too often remain unseen, and recognizing that these authentic connections with our community open new directions to make our own work more relevant and impactful. In truth, public universities weren't designed to be static. They are meant to be durable, able to adapt, recalibrate, and remain true to our mission, even as the world changes around us. And there are early signs that the adjustments that we and our sector have made in the past year are having an impact. In the past year, for the first time in a decade, confidence in higher education increased by 6%. And within our own state, 4% more Washingtonians believe that they and their families are better off because of the University of Washington. The strategic planning process that President Jones has launched gives us such a vital opportunity to visibly and boldly realign our mission with the needs of society. And on behalf of us both, I want to thank everyone who's already engaged in the work of strategic planning, encourage all of you to continue to do so. Throughout our history, the University of Washington has thrived regardless of the pressures because the members of our community have come together to deliver our mission in that moment. The examples that I'll share with you today provide a counter-narrative to the criticisms that universities are woke, wasteful, and out of touch. They tell the stories of our university, adapting to a changing world without retreating from our values, but instead living them more fully in service to the public. And they're just a snapshot of the vast contributions that we're making across our 3 campuses. I want to directly thank all of our students, staff, and faculty for their significant efforts in making the UW the special place that it is. Far from being unseen, they are the fuel that drives our positive impact in the world. I invite you to learn more about the things I'll talk about today on the Provost website. And I also welcome your input, and I want to encourage you to be involved in these and the other really important projects that are being led by the Faculty Senate, ASUW, and GPSS. Public universities, including the University of Washington, have a singular role in society. We exist to create knowledge that is rigorous, independent, and trustworthy, to educate people for many roles, and to bring these assets into partnership with local, state, national, and global scales. If you believe that our world is best served by an informed and engaged people, whether or not they're college educated, then public universities are not a luxury. They are a necessity. We together have the privilege of making this contribution together, and we share the responsibility to ensure it endures. Because society benefits from our work, it's our responsibility to help the public understand the values that make that work possible: academic freedom, equity, and inclusion. These values are sometimes misunderstood merely as wokeness, precisely because they are visible when they are hard at work, in moments of debate and disagreement. But they are essential to our progress, and our commitment to them is unwavering. Academic freedom, equity, and inclusion create the conditions for faculty and students to raise, challenge, and refine ideas based on evidence rather than convenience or conformity. New knowledge, we all know, emerges when we make room for curiosity, debate, and the free exchange of ideas, questioning assumptions, engaging complexity, and testing ideas in the open to unlock paths forward rather than shutting them down. Our progress is strongest when inquiry draws on the broadest range of experiences and perspectives so that we can develop a full understanding, especially when we disagree. We share the responsibility to not only create but sustain this environment because our society needs exactly these skills and capacity, especially in this moment. Our mission simply rejects the premise that people in general and students in particular are passive recipients of information or that exposure to complexity is dangerous. Our role is not to shield people from ideas, but to equip them with the skills to evaluate evidence, engage respectfully across difference, and reach their own conclusions. The Tri-Campus UW Dialogue Initiative is a key component of this work, guiding students to build curiosity, self-awareness, and mindfulness, as well as skills in critical thinking, evaluation of information, dialogue, and collaborative decision-making. And our academic programs are based on this path to learning. Our general education requirements create a guide for students to explore topics using different approaches. Our emerging student learning outcomes prioritize the analysis, evaluation, and synthesis of information to develop reasoned positions and engagement with multiple viewpoints. And our newly revised standards for effective teaching stress opportunities for learners to critically engage with ideas and one another. Across the university, our faculty are working hard to make their course materials digitally accessible to all students and to update criteria for promotion and tenure to renew our commitment to the contributions that enable our public mission. We aren't perfect in achieving all that we aspire to be, but we're committed to improvement because when we succeed, we have a front row seat to the talent that emerges. Let me share an example. On the Seattle campus, the UW Instructional Center, or IC, provides academic support to students, including those who are first in their families to attend college and those who are economically disadvantaged. As is true across the nation, these students are most at risk of leaving college before they earn a degree. Think about that for a minute. Factors that are unrelated to ability, but deeply reflective of experience, are some of the strongest predictors of student success. We have a responsibility to address this gap for our students and for the workforce needs of our state. I recently had the honor of visiting the IC, and I met Malia, who told me that when she first arrived at the UW, she had to learn how to make space for herself because she didn't feel comfortable raising her hand in class. Another student, Jason, shared that when he enrolled at UW, he believed that his childhood dream of becoming a doctor was out of reach. Both Malia and Jason found the IC, which helped them to bridge that experience gap. Both are amazing, and they're in the process of applying to medical school, and they're supporting other students through their own work at the IC. It's completely inspiring. The IC programs are amazingly and highly effective. Students who participate in the IC programs are 45% more likely to graduate. With nearly 32% of our undergraduates across our 3 campuses being first-generation students, we have a responsibility as educators to meet students where they are and to provide tailored support for their success. This approach is known as targeted universalism, and it reflects the founding belief of this university that excellence emerges through access and opportunity. I want to thank Ricky and his team for all they do at the IC. When we create an inclusive environment, we unlock the confidence to ask big questions that move society forward by pushing beyond what's known, connecting ideas across disciplines, and translating curiosity into discovery to find the answers. Over our long history, the UW has leveraged this confidence to advance the public good through our research mission. In health and medicine, the impact of UW research unfolds in clinics and laboratories and data sets long before it meets the public eye. Through more than 1,300 clinical trials and 2.6 million outpatient visits each year, UW researchers and clinicians translate discovery into care and expand access for the most vulnerable members of our community through nearly $800 million in uncompensated care each year. At the population level, the Global Health Data Exchange and the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation informs public health decisions locally and globally, helping communities and policymakers anticipate what comes next rather than simply reacting to what's already happened. In climate, energy, and the environment, UW faculty are developing and deploying the world-leading deep learning Earth system model for forecasting severe weather and climate change. And they're designing energy solutions through the Clean Energy Institute. We're developing approaches to wildfires, sea level rise, drought, flooding, and partnering with state and local communities to provide reliable climate information, training, and resources to decision makers through the Climate Impacts Group. These efforts together help us to forecast and mitigate and adapt to a changing world, while we also engage with communities to respond to the impacts that have already occurred. In technology, our faculty are leaders in artificial intelligence, data science, advanced computation, and robotics, developing systems that operate behind the scenes, as well as driving discovery all across disciplines. The AI for Biomedical Sciences, or AIMS lab, is uncovering early drivers of Alzheimer's disease to accelerate new therapies. The Wearable Intelligence Lab creates and weaves tactile sensors into clothing. I had to get a knitting reference in here. To monitor health and activity. And the responsibility in AI systems and experiences, or RAISE Center, explores how AI can be applied in areas the market often overlooks, expanding access to and use of this technology. Together, this work showcases how the UW positions technology not as an end, but as a catalyst centered on human needs and shared benefit. Through the humanities, arts, and sciences, we interpret evidence, place discoveries in context, grapple with meaning, value, histories, and power. The Jackson School is exploring the international impact of the second Trump presidency through its Trump in the World 2.0 discussion series. The Jacob Lawrence Gallery is hosting the Book of Zero, a multimedia meditative experience that explores structures of hate and the transition from difficult endings to new beginnings. The Simpson Center is supporting a cross-disciplinary research cluster to examine global sport as a form of cultural production. Together, this work helps us to understand how ideas and events shape our shared experience, connect past to the present, and inform choices that move communities forward, even through conflict and uncertainty. The scope and singularity of these and many other contributions are breathtaking, and they matter, but they're not enough alone for progress. Research, discovery, and creativity achieve their full potential only when people can see how they connect to their lives, engage with their implications, and partner with us to turn them into impact. And it's our responsibility to steward the public investment that enables these advances. Rather than being wasteful, we are becoming more effective and efficient in how we support research. So public investment drives discovery and innovation, and not bureaucracy. Our faculty are leading the way through the Research Resilience and Transformation effort, which is identifying opportunities to streamline operational processes, coordinate and optimize shared research resources, strengthen proposal development and support, and ensure that our research infrastructure remains strong, even amid uncertainty in federal funding. We're leading in the national conversation on increasing transparency and accountability for indirect costs through the Joint Associations Group. These efforts were not only targeted on our near-term challenges, but also for positioning this university and our research enterprise for resilience and future impact. Rather than being out of touch, we are ensuring that our work is visible and understandable to the public that supports it. And here, our faculty are leading in powerful and creative ways. Last fall, I watched Nora Dices of UW Medicine captivate a hushed room of Husky football fans 20 minutes before the game started, when she was talking about how she's redirecting the immune system to treat the most fatal cancers. Naomi McLeod-Brogin at UW-Bothell is convening arts practice workshops and community ceremonies in the International District to mourn, celebrate, and share migration stories. The Husky Post-Prison Pathways program at UW-Tacoma partnered with the Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks, to elevate the experiences of women who were formerly incarcerated. And a group of 20 faculty are engaged in training and opportunities to share their research with the public through the Research Impact Advocates Program. Hats off to Mari Ostendorf for starting that. And we have expanded efforts like the Research Makes America website and the Big Ten's We Are Here television campaign to reach audiences both here in Washington and across the nation. When we align excellence with efficiency and discovery with openness, research becomes not only something that we do, but something that the public can see, understand, and trust. That's how curiosity becomes impact and how public investment becomes lasting public good. Trust, however, is not built through communicating knowledge alone. It's built through relationships, through sustained engagement, shared effort, and visible commitment to the places we serve. We're meeting our responsibilities to the public by showing up as a true collaborator across the state of Washington. Earlier this year, 3 of our campuses once again earned the Carnegie Foundation's Community Engagement Classification, a recognition of deep partnerships with hundreds of organizations, including tribal nations, schools, nonprofits, governments, and private industry. These partnerships expand educational opportunity, strengthen communities, and contribute to regional and national vitality. They also create something just as important: shared purpose. That matters because trust in institutions is at historic lows, a reality that we see daily in the fracturing of institutions all across the world. And yet, even with that frame, surveys show that people believe confidence in one another can be rebuilt. One of the most powerful ways to do that is by working together on projects of shared importance, where knowledge meets lived experience and collaboration replaces distance. So to bring this work to life, I've invited 2 of our colleagues to share how their partnerships are creating pathways forward, not through abstraction, but through action, relationship, and trust built together. First will be Jody Sanford, Dean of the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance. She'll discuss the Civic Health Initiative, which was formed to guide the university as we help to foster trust, collaboration, and engagement with local communities, beginning here in Washington and extending outward. And she'll also discuss our leadership in the Big Ten Public Impact Research Accelerator. And then Sarah Cusworth-Walker, a research professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. She's also the director of CoLab for Community and Behavioral Health Policy in the Evidence-Based Practice Institute. Sarah will discuss the ways in which she and her colleagues are partnering with communities to advance child and youth wellness. So, Jody, you're first. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Serio, both for your remarks and for how you're leading the university at this time. As some of you know, I spent 20 years of my life in Minnesota, the Twin Cities of St. Paul, and left there 5 years ago to assume the deanship of the Evans School. And so it's important for me to say, I think that this was a difficult move for me. I raised my son in the Twin Cities. I'm from the region and I know the people and I understand how they weather adversity. As a professor in the School of Public Affairs, I work closely with nonprofit organizations, county and state government, and those partnerships taught me something very important for this moment. When a university shows up as a trusted partner, it becomes part of the civic fabric of a place. So you can imagine my heartbreak as I've watched what's happened in the last 6 weeks. The violence, the targeting of Black and brown people, the erosion of the rule of law. I've taken great solace, though, in a book written by more than a decade ago by Parker Palmer about this moment of heartbreak. He distinguishes between hearts that are broken apart and hearts that are broken open. If our heart is broken apart, we're wounded. We're unable to heal and prone to shattering under another demand. But if our hearts are broken open, the necessity of making change becomes indisputable. We look at the realities of the situation and try to figure out how do we act courageously to fill the gap between where we are and where we aspire to be. So that really brings me to the topic of civic health. As the Provost mentioned, for the last 2 years, Dean Ed Taylor and I, along with nearly 40 people across our 3 campuses, have created the Civic Health Initiative. This work, for me, has revealed much about the current reality. As the Provost has just shared, universities have long invested in discovery. We've invested in commercial innovation. We've invested in the private benefits of education. And I think we've often taken for granted that these investments will automatically generate public value. I don't think we've invested the same seriousness in building the civic infrastructure that we need to deliver it. And yet the state of the world is making clear the University of Washington needs to focus more directly on enacting our unique role in bolstering civic health. So let's define it. Civic health is the durable, society-level capacity to sustain belonging, freedom, and collective self-governance. It does so through norms of mutual respect and public-spirited responsibility. It does so through civic spaces and institutions that adapt to challenges without eroding legitimacy and enable shared problem solving. It does it through cultural practices that bridge across difference without requiring othering. In practical terms, a civically healthy society is one in which people can disagree without contempt. We can stay informed, we can participate in civic and political life, we can build trust and durable commitments, and work together on solutions, including through government and nonprofits, that create tangible improvements in people's everyday lives. Civic health does not require consensus, but it does require a shared commitment to the work of the common life. Few universities in this country have the reach, the partnership, or the public mission as the University of Washington. If civic health is going to be rebuilt, then institutions like ours need to lead. And we're poised to do so. We are poised to mobilize our resources, our time, our talent to create a durable infrastructure that advances this kind of vision of civic health for all. At a time when universities ourselves are under scrutiny, we cannot be defensive. We must see this as a moment of responsibility. Our work to develop a durable civic infrastructure is an important stabilizer in this larger ecosystem of which we're a part. And we've been working so closely with city and county associations, state agencies, citizens groups, with the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, and are activating other universities. This work will matter if it is done in relationship to others who are committed to addressing that what is and helping us build what we need. The Civic Health Initiative's core team has taken quite seriously the state of the world, and with support from the Strategic Initiatives Office, we began by using intentional participatory practices to ask faculty, staff, and students, how might we proactively lead in these times? So we are building real pathways and integrating opportunities for our undergraduate students. As the Provost mentioned, from their first days at the university, students across all campuses, irregardless of their major, are encountering opportunities to learn and practice dialogue across difference, build skills and experiences needed to become the next generation of civic leaders. We're integrating nearly 100 student-facing programs like internships, fellowships, community projects into a more coherent learning pathway. Through this work, we want every student, every single student, to graduate with experiences that build their civic identity and make civic engagement a core part of the UW experience. We're also building new areas of work that integrate UW's core competencies in response to this moment. For example, we're working to build out the space of civic technology. This university has led the world in breakthroughs in information technologies. Again, the Provost summarized some of them. But we need to do more to support open access civic technologies that strengthen community ties and participation. A key question of this time is, how can democracy thrive in a digital age? We want to begin with projects that expand access to information, to reduce partisan gerrymandering, helping local governments overcome resistance to artificial intelligence, and support journalists in combating election misinformation. We're also deepening partnerships with elected officials, public managers, philanthropic leaders. In a moment, you're going to hear from Dr. Sarah Walker, who offers powerful examples from her work in youth behavioral health. But across the university, we have centers that focus upon housing, upon community development, clean energy, education, climate resilience, and judicial reform. Yet we have not really created enough support for this kind of public impact research. Investigators are asking questions that matter in practice. For local officials trying to change zoning for housing. For judges seeking more equitable court operations. For coastal community groups preparing for earthquakes. But we've not sufficiently addressed the barriers that hold faculty back from this type of engagement. This gap between community needs and university investments is not unique to the University of Washington, but the consequences are becoming clear as citizens question the nature of our evidence, the foundation of science, and the value of public universities. This need has really shaped my own leadership. Public policies can help universities at this time. We understand policy process. We understand and practice interdisciplinary research. We have networks of our alum who are leading government and nonprofit organizations. And in the last 10 months, a colleague and I at The Ohio State University have organized a network of R1 public universities to strengthen training and support for public impact research. As of last week, 14 universities, including most of the Big Ten, have joined. Together, we'll share knowledge about research approach that take practice seriously and shape research products to allow people to use them in multiple formats. This is not replacing the research focused on discovery that Provost Serio talked so beautifully about, but it's about decreasing the costs for community engagement and increasing our impact. So University of Washington has been assembling the elements of a durable infrastructure. We're building our strengths, integrating what we have, and recognizing the urgency of the moment. While our hearts might be broken open by current events, they will not be broken apart. We will use this moment to strengthen our resolve to become a university that exists for Washington. I want to be clear in closing that this is not a partisan position. Universities enable judgment rather than replace it. We inform publics rather than decide for them. We support institutions without controlling them. Universities are among the few institutions designed to tolerate disagreement, to hold complexity, to invest in long-term understanding and remain publicly accountable without capture. But this public value does not automatically flow from the status quo. It requires institutional investment in infrastructure that can support civic health, and that is work we are ready to do together.
Hello. I'm grateful to be able to have the opportunity to talk about our role as a convener
in supporting child and youth well-being in Washington State. Everybody wants children and youth to have the care and support they need to thrive. Educators, healthcare professionals, elected leaders, families, all work hard to secure the safety and support of youth in their communities. But these efforts are often uncoordinated. And because they're uncoordinated, the systems and policies that are set up to support youth often fail them. What if I told you there was a group at the University of Washington that was committed to bridging between community and research spaces to advance real-world policy change to support youth, like PIP, who I'll tell you more about in a moment. About 7 years ago, a group of mental health clinicians and researchers came together to try to figure out how we could be more effective in responding to community concerns about public services. We saw passionate community advocates, youth, and families demanding change that was rarely or partially realized. We saw researchers with significant expertise unsure how to stand in public policy debates. We saw elected officials and agency leaders holding significant complexity with little support or guidance. And we saw that knowledge was often separate from effective action. And so we wondered what it would look like for the university to step into that gap, holding all those diverse perspectives with equal value. We called our team CoLab to reflect our commitment to public collaboration, working alongside communities and public agencies towards a public good. One of our methods, policy co-design, seeks to bring community and service agency voice into the earliest stages of policy development. So for example, Pip, a teen in Kitsap County, has a story that is all too common. Pip ran away from home due to high family conflict related to their gender identity. They ended up homeless and came into contact with the juvenile justice system. Typically, juvenile courts do not have a lot of resources to support housing. And as a result, youth come back to the system time and time again for issues directly related to their lack of housing. But in this case, the juvenile court was able to refer Pip to a nonprofit service navigator named Franz. Franz was able to support Pip with cash assistance, rental assistance, transportation, food, clothing, and emotional support, enabling Pip to stay safely housed and go back to school. The seeds of that program were planted about 4 years earlier when funders asked CoLab to walk alongside communities to design a program that would address the very high rates of housing instability among youth who were legally involved. So with our community partners, we convened legal advocates, the courts, behavioral health providers, shelters, county administrators, and youth with lived experience of housing instability. And these communities designed HSYNC, Housing Stability for Youth in Courts. We supported a 4-county pilot, and we brought in students and graduate students to work alongside CoLab staff to collect data, do research, support decision-making. And that was successful enough, the state took over sustained funding, expanded the program, at which point CoLab handed it off to a community organization. That program is now run by the Social Impact Center at the Y in King County for the whole state initiative. Youth Wellness Zones, a slide should come up, is another CoLab collaboration in which we act as a convener among communities across Washington state who are committed to place-based, collective impact, and youth civic leadership to support youth well-being. In this initiative, CoLab is a knowledge broker, a convener, a researcher, and an advocate for community-led policymaking. And I'm going to let the youth speak more about this themselves.
The missing piece with most teenagers when it comes to having a successful mental health journey is a support system that actually is able to hear what they're saying to them.
Hearing about it brings awareness to a lot of the problems that older people aren't as aware of. like, this is something I can spread and I can share. And I never thought I'd get this opportunity to do something like this.
Feeling like you belong somewhere really does help with confidence.
We promised for this funding, youth would define wellness, youth would describe what wellness looks like in our neighborhoods, and youth would prioritize strategies for community to wrap around and support youth mental health and wellness moving forward.
These are just a few of examples of the collaborative approach we take to our work, collaborating with communities all across Washington State. And amongst all this work, one key theme emerges. This work is creative. Integrating diverse perspectives and experiences necessarily creates something new. And creativity is really exciting, but it can also be unsettling because it asks us to have faith in something we haven't seen before and to participate in a collective vision of a future good. Along the way, we have come to think about the role of academic research and public problem solving a little differently. We now think of research as a useful tool that can contribute to a larger collective vision of a public good. And I am so grateful for the strong leadership at this university and for elevating the role of public research and public impact. Thank you so much.
Wasn't that amazing? Thank you, Jody and Sarah, for sharing the important work that you're doing to rebuild trust with our communities in partnership. It's so incredibly important right now. So I want to close where I began, with belief. Not belief as optimism, but belief as a choice that we make together. The University of Washington has never advanced because of inevitability. It's advanced because people have chosen to act together in service of the public good. At pivotal moments, progress has come from scholars committed to truth, educators devoted to students, partners invested in place, and a public willing to believe in possibility. That coalition is not bound by unanimity, but by purpose. Not by comfort, but by courage. And not by standing still, but by evolving. Thank you all for making it possible. I'm so honored to be a part of this community. Thank you for being here.
Okay, we have time for just a couple of questions. I'll begin with a selection of questions that were submitted by members of the UW community before we started, and others will be answered via email that were submitted to provost@uw.edu. So the first question, Provost Serio. The university has recently received new private and government support for AI. In light of this, the institutional emphasis on AI and teaching and preparing students for careers, what support will what support will the UW and the central administration in particular supply for those of us, the writer says, who center lived human experiences, relationships between humans, and human creativity? Those who attempt any attempts at, they say, dehumanization in our teaching, learning, and research, and who value doing all of those things without AI.
Thank you for this question. This is a really important question, and I want to stress, I know I speak for President Jones, the chancellors, and all the academic leaders across the three campuses when we say we want to enable faculty to use their talents and determine the best course of instruction in their own spaces. So we will continue to support faculty autonomy in that way. And I want to call out the Center for Teaching and Learning, Teaching at UW, and all the wonderful support that is available to students, to faculty as they explore different pedagogical approaches. I try not to position things in opposition to one another. So I think, we're creating paths for people who want to explore the use of AI. We would never mandate that. But we also have to realize that we have a responsibility to our students. We exist in a world in which AI is present, and they'll have to navigate that, and we have a responsibility to help them do that. That doesn't mean it has to happen in every class, but it needs to happen during their time at the university. And I want to thank Noah Smith for helping us think through the best ways to do that, and also for the governance work that he's doing so that we as a community can decide what are the limits on how we're going to use that technology and others, and how we're going to be transparently communicating those expectations with one another.
Okay, this may be the last one.
Okay.
The university will need to manage numerous budget overruns that have occurred in research, gift, and other budgets for which the faculty are the PIs. Yeah. However, the PIs did not receive any budget reports for the life of the grants and therefore had no mechanism to manage the budget. How will university leaders address this issue? Yeah,
thank you, Victor. And I want to just start by acknowledging I have a grant myself. I understand the challenges that we've gone through over the past few years. And I want to say that the university is committed to doing better. We had to undergo this transformation to position the university to be able to do the kind of projections and analysis that are necessary during this time of volatility. But we know that interface with faculty and administrators is an area that needs continued improvement, and we're dedicated to doing that. Both Jason Campbell and Maria Ostendorf have been working closely in listening to our community, folks on the front lines of this work, to understand what the needs are. And as we chart the path forward, we're going to elevate those. What are the critical things that need to happen, and how do we prioritize those in moving forward with the new structure?
All right, thank you for that. Actually, we're going to squeeze in one more that we can get submitted during the talk. Gives you a chance to talk about student engagement a little bit. Many times, the questioner asks, many times it feels like there's a disconnect between how students want to express themselves and how administrators want to receive information. What is the preferred method or avenue for students to communicate with your office? Sending an email feels fruitless if it isn't paired with action.
Thank you for that question. So I hope everyone knows I say this all the time, but on my website, there's a button that says Connect with the Provost. And what that does is connect you to the wonderful staff who support me in the office and get you teed up to join me for my office hours. I can do the best work that I can do being in community and conversation with all of you. That helps me, and I know the president feels exactly the same way, and the chancellors as well, to make the best decisions for this university. So please feel free to click that button and come and talk to me during my office hours. I'd love to chat with you.
Thank you so much. Okay, our time has come to an end. I want to thank all of you for joining us and taking part in this conversation. For those of you in attendance, we invite you to a reception in Alder Commons that is just through the doors at the back of the auditorium. Thank you all. Go Huskies.
Thank you. Go Huskies.